So I'm driving home because I thought I was supposed to be at work at 6. And I'm not supposed to be there till 10. So I'm gonna go take a nap. And then I'm gonna go back in at 10, like I'm supposed to. So this year we have several things that we need to get caught up on as far as what we need to get ready before we have animals and things on the farm. So the list, or tentative list I should say, that needs to be completed is we need to finish the chicken house. That we're doing it's essentially a chicken tractor without the tractor pulling it. So we are going to be doing an enclosed cage that can be moved or rotated for rotational grazing. And then we're gonna have 2 goats that are coming to us from my sister-in-law. They're Nubians, and if you aren't familiar with Nubians, they're a larger size goat. They're 90 to 100 pounds when they're full grown, but they're really good pets. They're like dogs. They're super sweet, and they have long floppy ears, and they are really good for milking. So eventually we're going to be doing them for the purpose of milking. Right now we're not going to because we don't have space or solitary area for a male goat that goes into what's called rut when they're stinky and ready to mate and all that stuff. So we're not getting a boy goat right this moment. So they're just going to be pets for a couple years, and then eventually we'll start looking for a buck and breeding and milking the goats for certain things like goat milk, cheese, homemade mozzarella, stuff like that, and then we are finishing up the garden and the garden beds, and we are going to start on the garden beds that are in the back of the house. So in the backyard we have what I'm gonna call the sister's garden, and do the corn, green beans, like the bush beans and all that back there, along with sunflowers and stuff like that. So we're gonna do that. I was trying to think what else. I know I'm going to try and coordinate a seed swap for probably over the winter. I'm probably not going to do one till over the winter. Maybe for Christmas. Maybe that would be fun. So if you're interested in participating in that when we get closer to time, obviously that would be cool. And we're going to work on getting a bee box. So John has a buddy from one of the departments he's on that is now doing bees full time. So he's going to work with us on getting a starter box and starting our first hive. And he's going to split it off of one of his hives. So we're going to work on learning that. John's dad has some and they love them, and my dad used to have some and he loved them, so I'm excited about that. And we're going to put them where they can be in between the sister's garden and the vegetable garden. But the cottage garden will be at the front of the house, so they'll be able to have access to that as well. So all of my little succulents are starting to come back. You can see where I cut them back last season, right before the cold. And all of the new growth coming up, the little itty bitty babies. And these I'm actually going to plant outside by the door somewhere. And they'll get big. They'll last year before they died, they were like that tall. So that gives you a good estimate. I planted these before the cold as well. They're called Johnny Jump Up Violas. That one doesn't really have any flowers, but these ones, see how cute they are? They're like little miniature pansies, and they're super cute, and I love them. And I'm gonna put them in some of our window boxes. Now over the winter, I say winter like it's over, but I mean, majority of it is over for us. It's starting to get warm. You can see where these peas are starting to come up and start climbing a little bit now that the cold's kind of gone. And I'm just gonna wrap them around and let them grow. And they kind of, you can see where they're wrapping around themselves. They're starting to. These are the Sugar Magnolia tendril peas. You see all these little pretty tendrils. And then over here, this is some broccoli that I left because I wanted to get seeds from it. So I could use the leaves to cook with. And then you can see where they're starting to get little flowers on them. As soon as the flowers are done, then they'll blossom into seeds. So I have those. And then more peas along here. I still have some borage here. It's starting to come back a little bit. I need to get in here and weed and all that, but the borage is the only thing that made it. That was left in here, besides the peas that I planted. And you can see they've gotten pretty good size. That one's just baby one coming up. And I planted some mustards in here. So you can see the mustards coming up, and there's some bigger ones. And then the peas. And these are the red mustards. And more peas. And more mustards. We tried them the other day. They're pretty good. Well, I should say I tried them the other day. They're pretty decent. More peas coming up. I'll look inside and see what all varieties I planted. But I planted several. I didn't expect them to come up. It was a trial. And I'm glad they did. My amaryllis are starting to bloom. There's some pink and white ones in here somewhere. And then I have some spearmint, or I think it's spearmint that I've overwintered some. The bunny really likes this. And it's a little treat, but you can see all the baby ones that are coming up. Starting to come up and regrow. So that'll be good for the plant itself. And I'll trim back all this dead stuff. But it smells really good. Good for tea. This out here is the area I'm going to be doing the sunflowers and the bush beans, the corn, all of that. So about from that stump, I'm gonna have all the rest of the cardboard laid out, soaking in the ground, newspaper, whatever else, up to about that point right there. And that's where all of the in-ground things are gonna go. And then somewhere in the corners where we're gonna put the bees, maybe just one hive. But yeah. So first round, I planted American flag leeks, and you can see all the leeks coming up. Right in this section is supposed to be the white Lisbon bunching onions. I don't see any, so we may have to resow those. Oh, here's some down here. There's more down here. So there's some coming up. Those were a little bit older seeds, so I did plant more in each cell, trying to get a good germination. Southport, sorry, I'm gonna turn this so you can see it better. Southport white globe onions. You can see there's just one or two in there. They're not really coming up very well. There's one there. I can actually see them better on the phone than I can in the person. All right, and then red burgundy onions. There's some coming up there. And then over here I have Dazzler, Dwarf Dazzler Red Cosmos. There and there. Giants of California zinnias. Long Island Brussels sprouts. I'm excited about the Brussels sprouts coming up. What else? Over here is plain parsley. So you see all the parsley coming up. And then in here I have holy basil, purple ruffles basil, lime basil, red shisho, which is like a Chinese herb that's a little bit spicy. And then I have Italian large leaf basil. You can see a couple of them coming up. A cinnamon basil, chicory, and sweet marjoram, which has not sprouted yet. Further down the list, we have the white Vienna kohlrabi. You can see some of those are getting really leggy. So this is just a cell that I did. I started them out bottom watered them. Well, at first I used a spray bottle, and obviously you can see some of them did not make it. Like that one is not gonna make it. So we're gonna take that one out. But once I started bottom watering it, they were much better. So we'll see. Some of them should make it, and they should be fine. And then in here is the Vera Lavender seeds. And then here are the extra triple curled parsley. So you can see those coming up. This is part of round one as well. So I had chives in here. And you can see this is what the dirt was doing when I was doing the spray bottle. And that's the difference when I did the bottom watering. So I'll go back and water that one a little bit more. See if we can get those to germinate. This is Celtis that's coming up. Green Mountain Celtis. And then the chamomile is not coming up yet. We have borage or barrage all sprouting up in there. And that's gonna go with the tomatoes because that's supposed to be a good companion plant for them to attract the hornworms and things like that. Here I have, oh, I lied to you. This is cauliflower. It's green Macerata cauliflower. So it's green heads of cauliflower. This is the Green Mountain Celtis right here. This is fern leaf dill. And then I have purple cauliflower, white cauliflower, which is the snowball, and the purple is Sicily. And then here is cilantro coming up. I have some cabbages coming up. Those are Savoy cabbage. And then the early Vienna kohlrabi. I have a couple in there that might not make it. And then two here that I had to upplant. And then in here are the nasturtiums. They're night and day nasturtiums. This is what they look like. That's the flower or the leaf. And they will be beautiful and they vine, and I need to get them where they need to go quickly so that they aren't climbing all over the place. In order, I have Single Sensation Cosmos. These are Golden California Wonder Sweet Peppers. There's nothing coming up there, but you see the little sprouts? So excited. Then I have Apricot Lemonade Cosmos. There's one in there. See it? And then Candy Cane Zinnias. There's two coming up. And each bush, mind you, is like a foot tall and 6 inches wide or whatever. But this is Copenhagen Market Cabbage, just to get a spring harvest real quick. Mache corn salad. I guess this would be more like an early summer, but same thing. This is Queenie Lime Orange Zinnias. You can see this one coming out of its shell here. And then there's one behind it. It'll focus. Okay. And then Little Gem Butterhead Lettuce. Nothing coming up yet. The white sweet Spanish onion. You can see that little white piece right there. That's one. And there's one in here. So there'll be a few that'll come up out of that. And then the Utah Yellow Sweet Spanish onions. I don't see anything yet from that. I did the onions and I did all these celery. I did pink plume celery, tall Utah celery, and then that celeriac, the giant, I guess you say pregu, I don't know how you say it, celery. And it's pretty much the root, the ball of root from the celery. It's a specific brand. So then I have my peppers. California Wonder Peppers, Santa Fe Grande Peppers. This is like a mild pepper. These are obviously all sweet. The Giant Marconi is a sweet pepper. I've heard wonderful things about this, so I'm trying that. Sunbright Sweet Pepper they're the yellow ones. I have a Chocolate Beauty pepper. That's a sweet pepper. And then starting the tomatoes, because the rest are tomatoes. So Dr. Witches, however you want to say it, is a yellow tomato. Triple L crop is a red, good producing, medium-sized tomato. The Dr. Witches are huge. Kellogg's Breakfast is a little bit bigger than the Triple L, but they're yellow as well, almost an orange color. Black Prince is red with, it's really purple with some black to it. Brandywine pink, obviously a pink tomato. Cherokee purple, those are those really pretty purple tomatoes you see. Paul Robeson's a purple tomato. Those ones are savory and don't have as much of an acidic flavor to them, so I'm excited to try those. Great White, obviously a white tomato. Aunt Ruby's German Green, that's a green tomato. And then I have Blueberries tomatoes, those are little tiny blue cherry tomatoes. Indigo Rose Pole Cherry Tomato is another cherry tomato that has some purple to it. Delicious tomatoes, those are red. Those get big. Homestead tomatoes, another red one that gets big. Mortgage Lifter tomatoes. These are just very good producing tomatoes. So they're your normal average size tomatoes, but they are phenomenal at producing a large quantity, which is good because my goal this year is to make a lot of sauces and salsas and those kind of things, practice my canning skills. And then Purple Bumblebee tomatoes. Those are supposed to be sweet cherry tomatoes that I'm excited about. Now when I planted these, I am bottom watering them. So you see all that lovely soil stuck in the bottom of there, but that's what I've been watering them just to keep them moist. Tray 2 of round 2, I did blue curled Scotch kale, scarlet kale, both coming up, Russian red kale, dazzling blue kale. I have dino kale, Tatso mustards. This is like a sweet mustard that's supposed to be really good for you. It has a ton of vitamin C in it, so I'm excited to try that. It's an Asian green. Chinese multicolor spinach amaranth. Amaranth is a plant that has greens that you can eat or has like grain, the flowers and seed, and they turn to grain, so that's pretty cool. Almost like a quinoa, but smaller, a lot smaller. Vates collards, and then I have a bunch of different Swiss chard. So I have magenta, ruby red, pink. Here's some Japanese giant red mustards. Those I showed you the other day in the garden. I think they'll be on the same vlog. Ford Hook Giant is a large, thick, white version of this Swiss chard. Orange, yellow, Vulcan's like a deep red. It's starting to come up. Lucilis is a white colored Swiss chard. Green wave mustards are coming up. The spinach has not started yet. We shall see if the spinach comes up. And then here I have Romanesca Italia broccoli. That's like a green colored, like a light green broccoli. Rosa Bianca eggplant, long purple eggplant. The Digessi cauliflower is a white variety of cauliflower. It's a little bit different than what your normal store-bought cauliflower looks like. Hot peppers, I have Anaheim, Big Jim, Pasabajillo, Poblano or ancho chili peppers. I want to make my own chili, so I'm excited about that. Habanero Caribbean orange. This is the hottest one I'll be planting. It's a Caribbean red pepper habanero. Then the lemon habanero, Black Beauty eggplants. I have Hungarian hot wax peppers, jigsaw peppers, which are equivalent to about a jalapeno. And then here's, speaking of the devil, early jalapenos. Serrano chili. Here on the side I have just a couple German chamomile I'm trying to get to come up. And then over here I have Aunt Molly's ground cherry, pineapple ground cherry, regular common ground cherry, and then the Chinese lantern. Those are like, they're essentially ground cherries, but they turn different colors. They're really pretty in bouquets. So long thin red cayenne and Tabasco peppers. So like I said, I started watering them from the bottom and it made a huge world of difference. Right now all I've done is when I planted them, I stuck them in my spare bedroom where there was no light and let them germinate, and then I brought them out into just an open area in the house like my kitchen table or the formal entry where there's a bunch of light, and let them go from there. And they turned from these little white seedlings that are popping up to a green color and full of life. So I'm excited and ready for my garden to be ready. We have until April 15th before the frost our last kill frost. And in North Carolina, you never know what your weather's gonna be, so you follow your kill frost. So we're waiting on that, and we have big plans for our garden. I have all of my beds designed out, and I actually used a program. It's called Garden Plan Pro. That's what it was. And I actually planned out all of my flower beds on there. It'll show you spacing based on the variety, and you can enter new varieties if there's not one that you have on there. So I thought that was really neat, and I'm excited about that. So here's an example of what my garden beds are going to look like based on what I input into the Garden Pro Plan app. And then it gives you a list of all the plants that I have put into the beds as a generalized overview, which is pretty neat. The only downfall to the app that I found was that the spacing for each plant is based on in-ground and not going to be on the trellises as some of the plants I will be planting will be. So after I have all of my seeds planted, I have a notebook that I input everything into. And it started on the 22nd of February, which is when I planted all of these. And then on the list, I have the plant name, how many days it takes to germinate, what bed they're planted in, and how many seeds I sowed. So from that point, I will write out on another piece of paper their germination date based on when I planted them, the transplant date, which usually I'm going to have as April 15th because that's after the kill frost. And obviously it'll be like a day or two after that, but just somewhere in that range. And then my harvest date. So I will look up days to harvest or days to bloom for each variety and write it all out. From that point, I will take my calendar and I will write it out on here as far as when each plant will germinate. So for here, on April 6th, I'm supposed to transplant to the garden my cauliflower, all three of them, my German chamomile if it decides to come up, and my regular chamomile. So from here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put all of the started seeds, the ones that I put in the cells that I'm waiting on them to germinate the rest of the way, and I will put them in the spare bedroom on a shelf with grow lights on each shelf, so that way they can finish growing and get strong. I'll eventually integrate a fan in there so they can get to know what the wind feels like, and then I will slowly start taking them outside as the weather warms up to get them used to the temperatures. From that point on, they should be good to go into the garden beds that we will have finished after April 15th, after our last kill frost here in Zone B, 7B in North Carolina. And then from there, we will just see how it goes and grow on and have our best spring harvest yet. I'm super excited for all the growth and learning that I will be doing this year. So I will talk to you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell so you see when we're popping on here and have something new to share. Thanks. Bless y'all.